I'm getting there. It's a little bumps and bruises, but back home, back on the training regiment, and getting back to just getting full 100% and getting ready to get back on the road.
Yeah. And I suppose, Steve, in terms of the journey so far in the wrestling industry, from the time we all know your decorated service as a Marine and with the United States Force, but since your time coming into the wrestling industry with WWE and Next and now with Impact Wrestling, it's almost been a decade now at this stage as a professional sort of wrestler. Is it a decision that you cherish to this day? Had you doubts when you first started off whether you can make that sort of transition and make that sort of a pipe dream become a reality? And are you glad where you've eventually found up and where Steve Maclin finds himself in 2024?
Yeah, we're in year 12, and it's crazy to think about. Of 12 years already, it's have flown by, and seven of that, well, about 7.5 my time with WWE and NXT, and then now here with TNA for almost 3 years here, and just it's been nothing but amazing. And if you would have told me 12 years ago that I would have been as successful as I am and as grateful as I am for the career that I've had so far, I would have told you no. Like, there's no possible way. Just because even when I got into pro wrestling, I never thought I was big enough. Never thought the size was there. I never thought like I was the larger than life character that I watched growing up in the Hulk Hogan's, the Ultimate Warriors, the Bret Hart, Stone Colds, and the Rocks, the Undertakers. And it's just crazy to think of how wrestling's evolved and changed into what it is now, especially with the TNA, you have AEW, you have WWE, you have New Japan, and just the different styles and the clashes and how it all meshes, and it makes for good matchups. It really has just helped me flourish and appreciate what I have and what I'm able to do for a living. And I'm a big kid my entire life, so I never have to grow up. I get to beat up people in my underwear for a living, and that's the fun thing to tell people, and it's just crazy to do.
I suppose, Steve, one thing I look at the Steve Macklin character, and one thing I look at you in terms of your wrestling career so far. We all talk about the attributes and the physical abilities to be a wrestler, but as we know, in terms of wrestling industry, it's all about the mic skills as well and the ability to act and perform on the mic, and especially a role as a heel. And I reminisce when I look at Steve Macklin. I see some of the mic skills of Kurt Angle back in the late 90s in WWE when he was playing that sort of heel role. And I suppose to be compared to Kurt Angle in terms of his heel ability, in terms of his mic skill, I suppose something as a wrestling fan you would adhere and admire to, given the legend that is Kurt Angle. But I see sort of similarities in playing that American sort of the looked up American hero, but a sort of a bad heel as well, in terms of a guy that's supposed to be good, but comes across bad as well. And Kurt had that, he could switch between good and bad. And I see an awful lot of that in Steve Macklin as well, in terms of his mic skills.
Thank you. I'll take that as the utmost compliment that I don't have to even comment on. So thank you. That's one hell of a compliment. So thank you.
Yeah, and I suppose, Steve, in terms of the wrestling industry, and we all talk about reimagining our character and sort of developing sort of concepts. And I suppose the door closed for you when you left WWE. So you were with a stable, you were with a tag team there for a while in terms of WWE. You had to come to a new company, set yourself up again, start from sort of scratch, develop a character, develop a concept for yourself, working with sort of writers to create this vision, to create this idea. And how challenging but exciting was that at the same point?
It was a lot of fun for me now because now it was all on me. I didn't have to abide by someone else's TV show. Granted, I do that in TNA. It's another person. I have a hierarchy of management that I have to pitch ideas to and go to for creative, and then also a boss. But now it's more or less the creative freedom that we get in TNA, where I was able to go out and shoot my own vignettes. I invested in myself, and the day I got the phone call that I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Here we go. It's on me now." So shooting my own vignettes and creating this character that I wanted to get, where it's a mixture between the Punisher and Captain America, but not the Captain America that's so straight edge on doing the right thing. It's doing the right thing that he felt in his heart was the right thing and not what was right for America, if that makes sense. So it was taking those two characters and kind of meshing it into one and just showing that other side of me and being as real of a version of me as I could get out there. And that's kind of what I've done since my beginning of TNA till now, where I've got to evolve a little bit and get to different parts of me, especially from going from working my way to the X Division title, not being successful, but then getting to my way to the world title, being successful, and become a TNA world champion, beating Kushida at Rebellion as last year, and then hopefully now getting back towards the world title picture. And obviously, I came up short against Nic Nemeth at Sacrifice, but to be able to be in the ring with Nic Nemeth, which never would have happened at some point in my career, but for us to do it here on the stage in TNA, never would have told you that would have happened. So it's kind of crazy to think that way, that everything comes kind of full circle, and to be able to go out there now, especially with a talent like him, and show the world that I can go with one of the best in the world and show that I am one of the best in the world as well. It's not just him. I'm there. I thought I stole the show that night at Sacrifice. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah. And I suppose, Steve, it's important to note to all our viewers and audience that you can see Steve Maclin on, catch him on Impact, on TNA, on Daz, on the Zone as well, and on the YouTube Insiders package. But Steve, I just want to mention on the concept there of your early years and when you came to TNA, the Steve Maclin, he was almost the nearly man so many times, the nearly man, nearly getting there, nearly coming up just short, inches, millimeters, dare I say, until the final breakthrough. But did that sort of strengthen your character and strengthen your resolve and strengthen the showman with the sort of fans as well, that there was almost this like, well, this guy's not going away, he's hanging around, he's digging in the high heels, he's like a viper, he's just waiting to sting at any given moment and seize these opportunities. It almost felt that you were knocking and belting the door down, and eventually it came off for you in terms of beating Kushida.
Yeah, it's longevity, and that's what we want in our careers, is longevity on the creative side of things, where I want to tell the long game story. If I just came in and won the title right away, it would have got, where do we go from there? That's how I look at it. So being able to earn it, and that's what I've done in my whole entire life. So I think that attests to who I am as well as a person, let alone as a character. Is I like to go out and earn things, and that's, I think, what I'm doing, and I'm still doing. Every time I walk through that curtain, I'm going out and earning the trust and respect, or the hatred from the crowd. And that's what I take full to heart of what I do for a living. And just to, from where I've been to now, from where I started till now, it's been a ride, and I'm looking forward to the future, whether it's with TNA or someone else. We'll see come in May, but it's one of those things that I love, just sinking my teeth into a story.
Yeah, and I suppose, Steve, in terms of some of the storylines and some of the unique characters we got to see you work with, Moose and the legendary PCO, in terms of that, and some of the battles that you've gone on, and there were some creative sort of storylines, especially with PCO and stuff. Were those sort of moments that you sort of reveled in trying to tell a story and tell the jigsaw before and after the conclusion of the match? Is that the exciting parts as a wrestler? Do you almost see it like a TV show, a TV series almost?
Yes. Granted, we do pro wrestling, but we're also sports entertainment, like you said at the beginning of the interview, where we are here to entertain. You're tuning into a television show that involves pro wrestling. So for us to just go out there and to continue to stretch a story, to have little ebbs and flows and take you on a ride, that's a lot of fun for me, because now it lets my creative juices go, of like, all right, we're starting here, where are we going? And then I can fill in the in between as we go, and then stuff happens organically in between, whether it could be an injury, someone new comes in, things just happen, but then it lets you get to where you need to get to on that ride, even though you have the end game being there, being told that you know what it is already, but just how are we getting there? And that's the fun for me, is like, cool, let's see where this kind of goes. I just think that's something that's different and something cool. And it's like being a Marvel fan for that first 10 years, getting to eventually the end game. That was pretty much the role of every character was brought into it. And it's the same thing with pro wrestling. And that's how I always kind of relate things to, is like, if you're going to the movies and you're investing in characters, you want to see where they're going or how they're evolving, or how they're changing. Eventually they get to their hierarchy of what they're going to get to. And it's really cool, especially with my story with PCO. For us to end that at Under Siege last year in May, me with a bloody pulp and Scott D'Amore putting the world title around my waist and earning it and showing the world like I can go the distance with the monster himself. it really showed, and it was good to just kind of come out on the other end of that being the winner.
Yeah, and wrestlers always talk about their bumps and their bruises, and in terms of, and sometimes they sort of laugh it off as a part of the business, and they know what it's like. But I'm just wondering, the other side of it, and in terms of a wrestling fan and watching on someone you love getting the knocks and the bruises, in terms of Deanna, and seeing, sometimes watching her matches and some of her fights. Are you more nervous watching her on the top rope, and her people landing on top of her, and seeing sort of the high stunts that the women go through? Is that more sort of, for you as a fan and as a wrestling fan, are you more nervous watching the stuff that Deanna goes through than your own self, and more concerned about her bumps and bruises, dare I say, than your own?
Of course, I'm going to be concerned if my wife was to ever get hurt. That, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But it's always the risk that when we go out that curtain, that something bad could happen. But that's where we come in as professionals and what we're trained to do. And I have utmost confidence in my wife. She knows I'm going to go out there and take risks, but also try to protect myself the best I can. But I'm going to go out there and deliver the best product that I can of who Steve Maclin is, and put on the best match on the card. And she does the same as well. And are we bumped up and banged up when we come home? Yes, but that's where we fall on each other and we take care of each other in those manners, and we help each other. And I have the utmost confidence that my wife goes out there and she kills it and protects herself in any way. And it's just it comes with the territory. It's not, the old saying of "it's not ballet" is very true. It's pro wrestling. It's not ballet.
Yeah, and I suppose, Steve, we saw recently one of the Hall of Famers and the legends of TNA Impact Wrestling call it a day, and he needs a sort of final match. But he'll always be remembered as, but especially in the last decade or so, as one of the icons of Impact Wrestling, the Hall of Famer Stinger himself, Sting. And I suppose Sting has done so much in terms of growing TNA Impact Wrestling throughout the years, being in so many iconic matches, revolved at growing so many sorts of the stars as well, in terms of that. And did Stinger have a lasting impact and effect on you as well? And were you, you mentioned Hulk Hogan, you mentioned some of the Chris Jericho, the Rocks, but growing up, were you a big Stinger fan as well, Steve Maclin?
Yes, because that was always between the Monday Night Wars. I was flipping back between WCW and Raw every Monday, and Sting was the guy there. And you just, I don't know, because I loved the Crow growing up.
Mm.
And then when you had that cross between him and the Crow, and he came down as the Sting of, as the Crow pretty much himself, and he took over that persona, it just was something different and cool, and just didn't speak, and you just wanted to know more. And you got invested into Sting because it was a complete opposite of where he was with the blonde hair and the colorful colors. He was just black and white. And this is what you're getting, the man defending WCW. But I was actually there at the Revolution pay-per-view, and it was really cool to see. And for it to see his sons come out there too, I thought the match was great, but just seeing the moment of him and his sons there, I can't imagine, like, that's like a perfect retirement in a way, where your sons are being you and they're getting to be their dad, who's I'm assuming is their hero, just to be out there. And I just thought that was a cool moment to see. I'm like, hopefully I can have something like that one day when I retire.
Yeah. And I suppose, in terms of the last one or two questions, I suppose in terms of the roster now that we have in TNA Impact Wrestling, it's growing all the time. The quality is getting deeper. We see Hammerstone recently make his debut as well. Such a real sort of coup for Impact Wrestling. And we almost feel now that the Impact Wrestling brand is growing back to where it was with the Aces and Eights, where it had the like Angle, Anderson, Joe, AJ, all these characters, Bobby Roode. It seems to be getting back there now. The roster is building, and we're seeing marquee stars like Nic Nemeth, Hammerstone, these type of people making their way to Impact Wrestling. So it almost feels like we're back to a three-tier company again. The rivalry seems to be coming back now that we have three big wrestling companies at long last standing on their own 3 feet in AEW, TNA Impact Wrestling, and the WWE. And that's only good for wrestlers in terms of having opportunities to have 3 strong, healthy wrestling brands. Means that the wrestling business is in good stead going into the future.
Yeah, it's a great thing. And it's also too, is like I have my eyes always on other products. Obviously, I try to watch as much wrestling as I can. there's so much wrestling. I don't know how fans do it nowadays, and they can pick a brand or they go back and forth between everything. But I know the focus in our locker room is the focus on making better the locker room and as a whole, and with the talent that we do have coming in and making the brand even better of TNA. And that's where the focus is how good can we make TNA with what we have and the stories that we can tell with the characters that we have now coming in, especially with a Nick, Mustafa, a Hammerstone, with Ash coming into the women's division, with the Knockouts division. Obviously, there's still some free agents out there that could come in that we could see at some point. We have Rebellion coming up at the Palm, so you never know who's going to show up.
Yeah, and I suppose finally for me, Jim Conlan, to you, Steve Maclin. I'm not going to talk about me. So many interviewers and questioners are asking you about that as well. But I'm just going to ask you, in terms of when you look back in maybe December 2024, and you're making your New Year's resolution for 2020-25, what would you hope to have ticked off the boxes at the end of December 2024 that you won't have to put it into the New Year's resolution for 2025, that you can say that, yes, I've achieved those in 2024?
I'm healthy. My bills were paid. I'm still doing what I'm doing as a professional wrestler and living the dream as I did as a kid. And I get to live that as an adult now. Yeah, hopefully TNA come May, they have a deal set in stone for me to stay. I would love to stay with TNA. I've made that aware to net management as well. But also it's taking care of my family. And if I am to stay with TNA, it's become TNA World Champion, or have become TNA World Champion if this is a New Year's resolution. Hopefully step foot in Japan at sometime soon. That's also on the bucket list for me. But yeah, ultimately it's just staying healthy and taking it one match at a time and not changing the mindset that I do have of going out there each and every time and treating it as it is my last match.
Okay. And on that note, that all that's left for me to say is, from me, Jim Conlan, to you, Steve Maclin, wishing you all the best 2024, whether that's in TNA or other ventures. No doubt you will continue to leave your mark on the wrestling industry. But for me, Jim Conlan, to you, Steve Maclin, stay safe, take care, and God bless.